So A Quiet Place Part 2 opens with like a Little League game with our main characters, and without warning, the invasion of this alien race starts to begin, and what happens next is an attack on this small town with our lead characters trying to escape. And that opening is intense, it's exhilarating, and is on the edge of your seat stuff. It is one of the most memorable opening scenes, that I can think of in recent memory, especially when it comes to sci-fi horror. And with A Quiet Place Day 1, it's almost like they thought, hey, a lot of people were a fan of those opening 5 to 7 minutes, so why don't we just like make that bigger and grander and make a whole movie out of it? And unfortunately, like if I'm being honest, the first like 7 to 10 minutes of A Quiet Place Part 2 is better than anything in this movie. Needless to say, I thought this was a little bit of a letdown, and I think it's the weakest one of the three. So even though I thought this was a little bit of a letdown, like I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think this is like, we're not talking about Rebel Moon here. Like this is actually a well-made, as well acted. Like I just thought that, I think that this concept has kind of run its course, and I felt it really, really, really bad in this movie. But let's start with the things that worked for me. One of the things I really dug is that they turn this into we need to get to point A to point B type of story, and I actually personally love those kind of stories. I like stories where characters have to go on a quest and they have to get from this spot to that spot, and it's about the journey and the friends we make along the way. I enjoyed those type of stories, and I was happy to see that that's kind of what they did here with A Quiet Place. We follow these characters from one insane section to another insane section to another insane. It's like the movie keeps kind of building and building and building, and it also revels in the quiet moments. And I mean, obviously, it takes the time to really we get to hang out with these characters, and we get the drama. And I think that that's important. It can't just be like a 2-hour action movie, because that would be really fucking boring. Although I'd argue that the characters aren't as fleshed out as maybe I wanted them to be. I think I could have used more time with them, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Another thing is the acting. Lupita is doing God's work as always. She's incredible. She's always incredible. She was phenomenal. She really held this movie on her back, and applause to her. Then there's Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things fame. I thought he was pretty good. I'm not quite convinced. I'm not on the Joseph Quinn train just quite yet, but this is a step in the next direction. I thought he was wonderful in Stranger Things. He's pretty good here. I kind of want to see him take a dramatic role, like a drama. Give him like an A24 drama. I want to see how he handles that pressure. But yeah, he was fine here. He mostly just kind of cries and looks sad for most of the movie. There are some moments towards the end where he kind of livens up a bit. But no, he was great. It was good to see him. It was cool to see Alex Wolff. I haven't seen him since Hereditary. For a second there, I'm like, is that Alex Wolff? But yeah, he has a big old beard. But yeah, that's the guy from Hereditary. It's great to see him. Very small role here, but I was like, hey, good to see you, pal. Good to see you. And obviously the biggest compliment for this movie is sound design. I mean, that's no surprise here. Sound design has been the staple of this franchise since the beginning. Like every sound is just amplified, and it's really well done. And the people who do the sound design for these movies deserves a raise, deserves a pat on the back, deserves a high five, because they nail it once again. Okay, so why did I think this was a letdown? If the acting was good, the story from point A to point B was good, good sound design, like why was I walking away, kind of disappointed? And I think just like what it comes down to is I feel like, this is the third movie, and I just felt like as I was watching this, to me, this concept has kind of just run its course. I don't think we need to see any more of these movies. And I think that this movie is evidence of that, at least for me. Because I think the problem is like, this franchise, this kind of gimmick, right? This staying silence gimmick, it works really well, obviously, in the first movie, because it's the first movie. You've never quite seen anything like it. Great moments of tension. How do we survive in an alien invasion when we can't communicate, when we can't make noise? The first movie and second movie handle that concept pretty well. But now coming into the third movie, it's like I realized that, as I was watching this, I realized that this concept, this shtick only has like a couple hands it can play when it comes to tension. And this movie just kind of uses the same methods over and over and over again. And ultimately why I think this movie was a letdown is that because this movie is a little more action-based. I didn't find any of the action here to be exhilarating. I didn't find any of the moments that are supposed to be tense at all. Tension in this movie is almost like completely wiped for me. I was not tense at all in this movie. And that's because, like, again, they just keep using the same kind of tricks. So it's like this franchise only has a few tricks it can pull. And by the third movie, this movie, you keep seeing these over and over again. and it just doesn't really work for me anymore. Like, for example, there could be a scene where someone's walking slowly, and then, oops, I stepped on a Baby Ruth wrapper, and then you hear the loud crunching noise, cut to close-up of the reaction of the character, and then, then you hear the audio cue of the alien, and maybe it shows up, maybe it doesn't, maybe you just hear it scamper off. But it's like those moments happen over and over and over again, and it's been happening since when did the first one come out? 2018? That method of using tension is just kind of tired. Like, it doesn't really work for me anymore. Like, when someone steps or makes a noise and then the alien kind of comes in, I'm just like, that's not tense anymore, because I've seen it done dozens of times in the first two movies, and this third movie does that over and over and over again, which is a bummer, because I feel like I would argue that the first two movies, they utilize the concept really well, and they put characters in positions that make it for a tense viewing. But in this movie, I can't think of a single moment in this movie where the characters are in such a tense moment that I'm tense, I'm on the edge of my seat. I did not feel that at all in this movie. Not at all. I felt like positions the characters are put in are not that tense, at least for me. I didn't find this movie to be intense or exhilarating whatsoever. And like, hey man, I get it. You're probably sitting there being like, well, yeah, that's the movie. People have to be quiet. So of course they're going to, have scenes where someone makes noise and it gets tense. And I totally understand it. I totally get it. But, I would argue they got to push the envelope further. You can't just have someone step on fucking glass and then, the aliens show up, because that stuff has been happening since the first movie. Like, you gotta use that, you gotta explore this concept. You gotta explore this shtick and give us something new and exciting. Intense. That's the word I want. I want tension. For instance, in the first movie, when she's giving birth in a bathtub while the aliens creep, like that is a great moment of tension. But there's nothing like that in this movie. There's nothing. And ultimately, I was just kind of bored by it all. I really was. Halfway through this movie, I was watching it during an action scene, and I kept thinking like, hey, I'm on Bail the Dragon in Elden Ring. I wonder if I put the cold ashes of war on my martial arts, if I can take him down, maybe I can freeze him. Like, I was thinking about Elden Ring as I was watching this, because it just, like, none of this was working for me. None of it. And the A to B quest, like what the characters are trying to get to, both physically and emotionally, I think it works well in concept. I think it is, a very, very dramatic and emotional journey, I guess, but it just didn't stick the landing for me. It really didn't. And that's because I just feel like we didn't spend enough time with just the two main characters. Instead, like I said, this movie is a little more action-based, so we get more scenes of action versus less scenes of them being together. We do get them being together, obviously, but I just wish there was maybe a little bit of a longer stretch of this movie where we get to just hang out with these characters and get to know them a little better. But hey, maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm being too harsh, but this is all subjective. This is just how I felt while watching it. I don't think we need another one of these. I think we can end it here and be happy. Like I said, I don't think this is a bad movie. I want to reiterate, this is not a bad movie. I just didn't love it. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as the first two movies, but am I crazy? Let me know in the comments. Did you enjoy this movie? Is this your favorite one? Is this your least favorite one? Let me know what you thought of the movie, and I will see you on the next one.